Today I'm joined by filmmaker, director, producer, writer, Mr. Sam Cadman. How you doing, Sam?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. This year marks 20 years of Trigger Happy TV. Does it feel like it was that long ago, or...?
Well, Dom and I have been re-watching them, as part of lockdown. And when we watch them, it does feel like 20 years ago. In my mind, before we did this, which happened quite sort of spontaneously, just out of, the kind of boredom that we've all sort of endured, it all seemed very fresh and it seemed like yesterday. But watching them and you realize there are huge swathes of it that you've just sort of forgotten. And in actual fact, your memory of it is really kind of like the 6 best bits of the entire experience. It's kind of, it was a long time ago. It was fun to do, and Dom still makes me laugh a great deal. It takes a certain kind of skill to want to go and do things like that, and he's really good at doing it. And it made me realize that actually we were very lucky to be able to be paid to go and do that. I mean, I don't think you would be now. Certainly at that level, at the point we were at, we'd be having to do it on social media for sure.
Yeah. It would be a YouTube show these days.
Definitely. I mean, we would have been encouraged to have kept that channel going on YouTube for a while, and basically, whatever broadcaster was eventually going to pay us to make a series wouldn't have had to have essentially, support us from the start, which is really what Channel 4 did. Yeah.
That's the interesting thing from watching the watch-alongs is how much you pair got away with just being left to your own devices, really.
Absolutely, and pre 9/11, I think 9/11 really changed how people behaved around people being odd in public, because the stakes were much higher at that time. We were not joking. We really didn't. It was a combination of, we had a really good lawyer at Channel 4 who was really on our side, and he was always trying to see how we could make things work or deal with releases that perhaps we hadn't got or whatever. So we had the kind of support from the broadcaster.
So obviously you were the lead camera operator on Trigger Happy TV, which meant you got left after Dom ran off a lot of the times. Are there any particular celebrity moments that stand out there? You got left with someone famous?
Those I enjoyed the least, because for exactly that reason. Dom was always going to run off, and then I had to go through this kind of awkward 20 minutes of trying to leave without sounding like I was kind of in on it, And I sort of had this whole lie that I was essentially a kind of cameraman for hire who'd been freelanced in to do this gig, and I didn't know who Dom was, and I didn't know what was happening, and I would call my office, and I would often call Dom afterwards pretending he was my kind of like diary service that had booked me, and I'd be saying, I don't know what this guy, he just punched this bloke and then ran off, and so it was quite an ordeal to get to a point where I could then leave. Normally it was fine. The only person who I felt really uncomfortable was Gordon Ramsay, and I really like his shows, but he's a pretty intimidating guy, and I really thought he just had that, like sometimes you meet people and you realize they have no fear of getting into a fight.
Yes.
It's just not a problem for them. And I felt that a bit with him. I felt like he didn't care. Like if someone was going to get punched, he wasn't worried about it. And if you're not like that, it's kind of like, that's pretty intimidating.
Yes. But that one wasn't shown, was it? The Gordon Ramsay?
No, didn't show it. And, one thing we've realized watching these watch-alongs is, it kind of the mythology of it all gets a bit mixed up. I can't remember why we couldn't show that. I just remember he was really unimpressed. He just thought we were real. It was really, you feel really foolish.
There's the brilliant line from John McCririck when Dom collapses and he just goes, I don't know what type of program this is.
But that, for us, that was what we were aiming for all the time. I mean, it was almost like a sort of schoolboy prank, sort of playground antics to it. It was the purest trigger happy jokes was really just wasting someone's time. Something that was totally silly.
Yeah. You said there's in your head there's about 6 sort of standout moments where like that you thought the show was until you started watching it back. Is there anything that sort of shocked you going back to it where you're like, oh God, I can't even remember doing that?
Loads of it. Like, the snail crossing the zebra crossing, which was a real fave of ours, probably top 3. Everything about it was right. We'd had this great costume. And Dom, when he had a costume that he really believed in, he'd really go for it. And that's an example, I think, of the snail crossing where, just as a director, if you've got talent who feel utterly confident in what they're doing, that's when you get the result. Compared to, I'd completely forgotten about this. We went back to that same zebra crossing some months later with this hare and tortoise costume that was, Dom was the tortoise, and the idea was he would take a long time crossing the zebra crossing, and then someone in a hare costume would come racing past. And, it's sort of, even explaining it feels like a bad joke. And you can see that Dom just isn't into it. And partly because the costume of the tortoise isn't particularly good either. And, that's an example of, like, in my mind, I've just recorded over that. Like, yeah. I had no idea when I was kind of watching it back before we did the watch along, I was like, what the hell is this? I mean, literally, it's very odd watching things that you were a part of, but you have no memory of it ever. I think it's like a coping strategy.
Yeah, you just blank those bits out.
Yeah, exactly.
Was it always your ambition to work in TV? Because I know it was a bit of a fluke how you met Dom.
No, I went to art school and I graduated thinking I wanted to be like Andy Warhol. I wanted to be a fine artist. I wanted a studio. I really saw myself as an artist. And I had a studio and I was making these sort of enormous abstract sort of screen prints. And I got to a point where I realized it was like supply without demand. It's like no one was asking me to make these things. I was just making them. And at about that same time, I had a friend who he was an in-house runner at Ridley Scott Associates, the the production company in Soho. And so we were starting to hang out there in the evening. And, advertising in the middle 90s was having a real boom. You had some amazing stuff being done. And I thought, this is where I want to be. This is how I want to live my life. Yeah. And so I started running on commercials. And then I met Dom quite tangentially when I was serving Robert Plant in that pub up in Primrose Hill. He used to live in Charcot Square. And we started hanging out together, and we just kind of worked. We'd think of silly things to do, and then I'd film him doing it, and that was that. And we were just lucky. We were lucky that it kind of had a momentum, and we just went with it.
Yeah,
it wasn't like I went to media study. I did media studies and wanted to be a TV director. It's and it took several years to really. It took several years of advertising, directing commercials to feel like I actually was a director, because I didn't, I just thought it just didn't feel like that to start with.
Yeah. Like Trigger Happy felt more like a sort of you and your friend hanging out, making funny stuff rather than.
Yeah. And it was like being in a band. I mean, it's all we wanted to do. We had so much fun doing it. We just hung out all the time. We lived around the corner from each other. We'd go to the pub after we'd finished work for the day.
Yeah,
like it was I was very lucky to have that time. Maybe everyone has their version of it in their 20s, but it was definitely a highlight in my life, that period.
Your online handle for like Instagram and Twitter and stuff is Mr. Codlar,
right?
Which comes from a gallery on your website, and I wondered if you wanted to explain about that.
Yeah, so my name is Sam Cadman, which when you see that written, to me has always seemed incredibly clear. Maybe because my mum was a graphic designer or something, but it's SAMCADMAN. It's like, to me, it seems really kind of straightforward. But over the years, and less so now because things are all digitized, but, you know, for many years, I'd get my name misspelled. And it was really on letters. So, you know, Sad Cadman. In fact, I think Sad Cadman was from Channel 4.
Oh, wow.
Sad Cadman, Sam Sadman. I mean, if you go to the website, there's tons of them. Sam Cadman, Simno Cadman, Mr. Codlar, Mr. Lauman. I mean, it's sort of, and I think I've got about 30 of them, and you couldn't make some of them up, but they're all totally real, you know.
Yeah.
And every now and then I do occasionally still get one or two, and they go up on that website.
And you'd liked Mr. Codlar as your handle.
I was pretty sure that no one else would have that. CODLAA. Like, I don't know where in the world that might be a name.
Your main work these days is in ads, and you've done work for Virgin Airways, Ikea, Burger King, some huge companies. Like, how did that all start? Was that a follow-on from Trigger Happy, or? So
I was, like I say, I was already running on commercials and music videos, and I would always be saying to the exec producers, like, you know, I really want to direct. I guess that's what I said, because I can remember there was one particular company, and this lady, Jane Fuller, she said to me, wait for your Trigger Happy series to come out and see what happens then. And she was totally right. Like, within 2 weeks of Trigger Happy going out, I got a phone call from Charlie Crompton at Rogue Films, who I was basically with for the next 20 years. I mean, pretty much the entire run. And he said, you know, do you want to do ads? You know, and advertising, you know, I think it's in a different place now, but it still feeds off whatever is topical. And so because Trigger Happy was popular, you know, a bit like how The Office permeated everything, you know, people wanted that Trigger Happy sensibility. So the early ads that I did were really just sort of very Trigger Happy-esque. But I realized very quickly that could be a kind of like paid film school. And at the time, you know, if you were a serious director, if you were like a proper director, you shot on 35mm film.
Yeah.
And I'd never done that. I had no idea how to do that. But the great thing about advertising is that, you know, you've got the budget to have all the experts around you. So I spent a bunch of years shooting on film, and right at the point where I was really confident and relaxed to be shooting see myself as a director and to be shooting on film, it was like, okay, forget it. Film's over. We're all going to shoot on digital now. It was literally like I'd gone full circle, and certainly now, like, I shoot things on iPhones. I mean, it's kind of crazy. I mean, I like all that, but it's just funny how these things evolve.
Yeah, it's like you got into TV just as cameras were becoming digital and cheaper to make low budget TV, and now you've got, like you say.
Well, and you know, some people sometimes say, you know, I only have myself to blame for kind of the way it's all gone, because, you know, I remember when we were making Trigger Happy, you know, this idea of having a crew and a kind of conventional production, you know, that wasn't what we didn't even know how to do that. In fact, we found that the thought of that quite intimidating. What was really nice was that it'd literally be me and Dom. You know, I had this camcorder that we could put a lapel mic on that Dom would wear. That was it. And I had headphones so I could hear what he was saying, but I couldn't talk to him. And then we had two kind of runners or PAs who would come with us, one who would drive the vehicle and the other who would help us, like, dress up as a dog or whatever. And that was it. And it just meant that we were completely left alone. We were very cheap as a production. And, you know, we just kind of did whatever we wanted, which was a lot of fun. And actually how Dom works at his best, really.
Yeah. In the world of ads, I imagine everything's a lot stricter and you've got people watching you constantly. And
yeah. And I remember doing my first commercial, and I'm standing there holding the same camera that I would shoot Trigger Happy with. And I turned around and there's like 40 people sitting there waiting, you know, waiting to, like, I don't know, do whatever. You know, suddenly you've got 6 people from the agency, you've got, you know, 6 people from the client, you've got hair and makeup and all these different departments. And that was really intimidating. You had little Vespers at the time, and I used to Vesper to set because I knew that if the shit really hit the fan, I could just get on my scooter and go. You know, it was real, like, kind of imposter syndrome or whatever they call it. Like I definitely didn't feel qualified to be there. And it took a lot of years to get over that. Probably 10 years. It took a long time to really feel comfortable on a set.
Do you feel in charge now when you walk onto a set these days? Do you feel?
Absolutely. Yeah. But because I know what I need to be worrying about. Whereas I think, when you're learning it, there's a lot of things to worry about, and you may not know how best to do that, or who should be helping you, or how best they can help. Whereas now, and I went through it. I went and lived in LA for a while, about 10 years ago. And I got an agent, and I went around all the Hollywood studios thinking, right, I'm ready to go do a movie. And actually, when I was offered a movie, I thought, I have no idea what I'm doing here. This thing's going to be a car crash, and I'll never be able to work again. Yeah. And that was, that's quite an eye opener. And it's taken, you have to decide, right? Well, do you throw in the towel, or do you go away and kind of regroup? And that's kind of what I did. And I feel, certainly in the last, 5-10 years, I definitely, I know what I'm doing now.
Yeah. And obviously working in the ads has got you to work with like some huge names, like quite literally. In fact, as when I was researching, there's a few brilliant pictures of you with Shaquille O'Neal.
Oh my God.
Where he just dwarfs you, like.
I mean, I've worked with a few basketball players, but that guy is massive. He is massive, not just tall, but it's like hugging a tree. He is so big. And I remember he's also, because he's so big, he can't hide. Like he can't put a hat on and shades and walk down the street. Like the moment he steps outside, everyone is looking at him. And it's it's kind of like, I don't know what the equivalent would be here, but like David Beckham or something. Like he is. We were filming in this soap shop, and outside it was on Venice Boulevard, which is this big main road, and it's 3 lanes in each direction. He walks out, and literally cars are stopping, like in the fast lane, and they're getting out with their children because they want a picture of their children with Shaq. I mean, he is such a star, and he really knows how to. Or I guess he's been forced to work out a way to live with that. And he's very good at partly because you can't really get to him, but he kind of controls it. And he's very good at sort of making people feel like they've, had a piece of him without giving it all away.
Yeah.
He was cool. And actually, who was really cool on that job was Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah.
That guy's a seriously cool dude. And just, like super bright and just on it. I mean, it would be fascinating to see what he goes on to do, but that's a really smart guy.
Yeah, it was amazing, really, to go through some of your ads and see the people you've worked with. There's some huge names in there.
Well, and it's funny because advertising now, let's say in the last 5 years, has really taken a beating. I mean, nobody wants to watch ads, and the ads that people are being forced to watch aren't particularly enjoyable for lots of reasons. But, at the time I kind of got into it, like you said, I suppose I could have gone into TV or stuck in TV, so to speak. But at the time, advertising was so alive, and there was such interesting work being done. And like I say, you could get paid properly, and you got to play with all the toys. I mean, you did it with all the kit. And you're right. I've been very lucky to have, I've been to lots of interesting places and worked with a lot of really, like I worked with the DP of The Matrix.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we shot this thing for Microsoft. Again, this is like 15 years ago, and we shot it on phones. I don't know what phones that would have been then, but here's the guy who DP'd Matrix shooting with a little handheld phone because, we kind of could. And so why not? And advertising has been very good to me like that. I've definitely been able to have some really incredible experiences.
And so that brings us to like last year, was it, where you've directed the pilot for a show called Man Overboard? Was that crowdfunded as well?
Yeah. So basically, the 2 writers, one of them is an actor who I cast in a fried chicken commercial that we shot down in New Orleans, which is a fantastic city. And he asked if I wanted to help them get this kind of taster shot of this sitcom they were putting together. and I really liked it. It's basically about a middle-aged guy, trying to survive in a marina in the Bronx. So in a single day, he loses everything. He's got this very comfortable middle-class life, and in a single day, it's all gone. And it's been really fun, and I've got quite involved in the creation of it, the development of it, and we're literally, as COVID starts to lift, we'll be taking that out. And that's been really fun to do long form scripted comedy. I'm doing another thing about a second generation Latino who's trying to find love in a family that's dealing with dementia. And that's kind of quite nice too, I suppose, like an American Afterlife.
Okay, well, yeah.
Character is having to move back into his parents' apartment. Again, it's set in New York. And the lead actor, it's pretty autobiographical. And so you get these kind of fantastic pieces of dialogue that are from the horse's mouth, so to speak. The things that his parents actually say as they're dealing with this kind of miserable disease. So that's been, in fact, actually lockdown has been pretty good for me in that way. It's forced me to write and to really move some of these things on that probably would have sat around for longer if it wasn't for the fact I literally couldn't work.
Yeah, no excuses.
Yeah.
And so do you see yourself doing more of that now, scripted stuff rather than like the ads?
Well, I feel, it was 20 years ago that Dom and I did Trigger Happy, and I've been doing ads for 20 years. I feel, like I was saying earlier, I really feel at the point, I feel like I'm ready to do something sort of bigger, so to speak, something sort of ambitious that uses the skill and experience I've acquired. It's taken longer than I thought it would, and maybe it's too late, but that's definitely how I feel.
And like I say, thank you on behalf of me, and I'm sure lots of other people, that were influenced by you and Dom back in the day. It's
really nice that people do, I'm sure not everyone, but it's nice that there are people who look on it fondly, and it's funny how often that comes up. So I'll be, shooting a commercial in the States, and someone in the cast will come up and say, "Oh, by the way, I didn't realize, but you were on Trigger Happy. I love that show," and and that's pretty cool. Like I say, to me, it's like being, like a one-hit wonder band or something. You had a go at it, and people still like it, and it's nice to be reminded of, the fun that it brought everyone.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And then I've got to leave you with this question, because this is the question I ask everyone that I'm lucky enough to interview. And just to set you up, the answers we've had so far are Steve Guttenberg, Ricky Gervais, Russell Brand, and Robert Smith. So the question is, who's the most famous person you've sent a text message to?
Well, I'll give two answers.
Okay.
Before mobile phones, long before mobile phones, when I was young, my uncle was a theatrical accountant, and he was working on Pete Townsend's musical, which was going to be called Tin Man, I think it was, or something like that. And my uncle gave me this script that he'd obviously, someone had given him in the office. And I read it, and, I loved The Who when I was young. And they'd written in the margin, they'd put Pete and then a phone number. And it was like, that's got to be Pete Townsend's phone number. Phoned it up, I'm like 10 or 12 or something. We phoned it up, and he's like, hello. And it was him. It's like, and he didn't know what to say. And he's like, how'd you get this number? And we just hung up and thought, we were going to get caught by the police. So that was a long time ago. But as an adult, probably Jim Mangold, who directed 3:10 to Yuma, Walk the Line, Logan. He's been a really supportive friend over the years, and I've definitely texted him.
Nice, that's impressive.
He's impressive. He's the deal. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, wow. So yeah, brilliant. And then, is there anything that you want to plug while you're here?
Only my Instagram handle, Mr. Codlar, which you very kindly mentioned. It's always nice to get more followers. and to look out for Men Overboard as and when we can make that happen.
Excellent. And obviously the Trigger Happy watch-alongs on a Friday night.
Right is this Friday may well be the last one. It would be the 10th watch-along. The last 10 weeks we've done it every Friday night at 8 p.m. And we've we finished series 2 last Friday. So that just leaves the 2 Christmas specials, which I think we're going to do this Friday. And then that's kind of it.
But yeah, you've set up a YouTube channel for those if people miss them and want to watch them back. Yeah.
If you go to YouTube, Trigger Happy TV Watch Along, you can watch the episodes we've done to date, and so there'll be 10 in total.
Excellent.
Yeah, they're kind of fun. They're like a living director's commentary.
Yeah, it's as like I say, as a fan of it, it's been fun watching them back with both you and Dom laughing at your own jokes.
Yeah, I know Dom felt really self-conscious about that. I said, I think it's good that people see that he enjoyed what he did, and he's just a funny guy, isn't he? Like just when he talks, it's funny. So that's for free.
Excellent, Sam. Thank you ever so much.
Oh, thank you, man. It was fun.
You have to embarrass yourself, Mark.